Hello Ascension Seekers, I'm Bryan A. Moore. In the last What Are You video series, our attempt was to get you to define what you are from your Ascension perspective. In the series it was presented that we, those who are human, are generally defined on the highest level as a spirit or soul that is connected to a human body on a human experience. After that, your destiny is up to you. I hope it was of some help. My new definition of what I am is definitely helping me manifest my self-defined reality daily. And I hope you decide to fully join us on this fundamental journey of ascension. In this video, we will respectfully suggest that you define who you are by revealing the methods to define the architecture of the person. Hopefully it will be a helpful offering. So let's get set up. Oh, and if you have HBP, this is probably the time to leave. In the last video, I founded a new metaphysical illness whose acronym is HBP. It's Hypnotized Brainwashed Programming, to be known as HBP. Hypnotized Brainwashed Programming, or HBP, is thought to have been around for eons. HBP is known to cause people not to research, investigate, or define who you truly are. You could have HBP if you are constantly and consistently being distracted away from using any energy to investigate yourself or anything that is not biologically or physiologically imperative and based on an acute or chronic condition. Not even for self-analysis. In the raw material, it relates that separation from self is the first order of business to establish control over others. So, are you woke enough to define or redefine yourself? Are you? Hopefully you have done the work to know what you are. You have HBP if you cannot definitively state in 2022 what and who you are. We affirm who we are, so who are you? What is the state of your consciousness? Awake, working to improve yourself and others physically, mentally, and spiritually. Woke, begin by complaining against an issue one disagrees with or being anti-issue but taking some impactful action. Asleep, likely overwhelmed and frozen in place with fear or passivity. Zombie, in full agreement and acceptance of the status quo, follows orders 100%, wants no change, willing to go backwards if asked. Entertained, planning, and enjoying the fight against the growth of light. First, we have to hit the relevant definitions. So, who are you? The definition of the word who. Google Oxford. 1. What or which person or people. 2. Used to introduce a clause giving further information about a person or people previously mentioned. The definition of the word are by Collins Dictionary. Are is the plural in the second person singular of the present tense of the verb be. The definition of the word you. Google Oxford. 1. Used to refer to the person or people that the speaker is addressing. 2. Used to refer to any person in general. And to be more clear, let's transliterate the question, who are you, to the vernacular, who be me, for a more internal perspective. Moore Ascension is only interested in helping you to better understand you from an Ascension perspective, which can best be done from an inside-out approach. There are several areas of life in which one could be perceived or have their personality viewed. One could then attempt to determine how that person became the person that is being seen. But one could later find that the assumptions that they made about a person were not at all correct or complete. So there are many modalities or methods that one can use to determine personality or who they are. Some of these modalities or methods have been determined to be taboo by the established order for over 1,000 years. So how do you identify yourself? The list of modalities to be worked are many and basically fall into the following categories. Conventional methods and those methods that can be termed as unconventional methods. Conventional modalities of deciding who you are include external characteristics that are visible and not visible, and internal values that polarize positive and negative. Also, unconventional modalities can be viewed as those that are known, those that are not too far out there, those that are at the beginning of the far out there ones, the far out there ones, and the too far out there ones. We'll get to these in the next video. The conventional methods again fall into the category of the external characteristics of visible and non-visible characteristics and positive or negative internal values. Do you identify with your external characteristics, those established by the external environment in which you live? How would you identify if your environment was markedly different? How would your external characteristics be valued differently? Your skin color, your ethnicity, your race, your gender, your sexuality, your religion, your accent. Are you shy? Are you a pushover, aggressive, a warrior? Or do they see your zest for life? Are you viewed as a job title or an education level, a bank account? So, what makes you who you are? Who do you see in the mirror? Your environmental factors are, quote unquote, the establishment, the conventional things in your life: parents, family, friends, schools, religious institutions, work, neighbors, supporters, enemies, competitors, collaborators. And your family tells you you are whatever you are said, and you deal with that, and hopefully it was good. Your friends tell you, "You so crazy," but you like that one, don't you? Work gives you performance feedback. Some people just give you looks. Who is the real you? Have you defined the who you are yet? Most of us are continuously working on this one. As we grow, hopefully, we change, gain knowledge and wisdom, and we mature. You may define some of who you are by the internal characteristics or internal values you have decided to live by. But you do know you have decided, and that those decisions impact your reality. But was the decision you made at the time made as a follower of the conventional wisdom or as a leader of yourself? If as a follower, you may want to revisit those decisions. Do you identify with your internal characteristics? These internal characteristics are also known as values, the values that you live by. Do you perceive yourself as these values? Some of these internal values are respect, integrity, diligence, perseverance, competence, truthfulness, honor, honesty, and confidence. Conversely, ignorance, arrogance, cynicism, pessimism, gullibility, lying, cheating, stealing, complaining, scheming, manipulation, and downing others are values you may choose to decide to live by. Some additional areas of evaluation and determination should also be taken into consideration. The following methods are still conventional by my perspective, but aren't all accepted in the business community yet. Most of these methods of external or internal definition of a person's self are mainly accepted by the broader community. Obviously, some get more pushback than others, but to no great degree. Ask yourself, does it stand to reason you could determine who you are partially using the following conventional methods? Frequency and vibration. As you can see, a good portion of who we are can be derived from the positive or negative thoughts and words we use in our everyday lives. They denote the levels of who we are from a positive and negative personality perspective. Thoughts and words have vibrations and frequencies that can also affect our health and the health of others around us. Thoughts and words also predict our actions and activities. Does it stand to reason you can determine who you are partially using this method? There are some conventional methods that to some may be very new, or a method that has begun to be accepted more recently by one of the conventional authorities. These methods are still aligned with the more recent conventional establishment methods. The concept of left brain and right brain and the goal middle brain. If left brain, one is logical, versus right brain, one is intuitive. Though the concept of brain hemisphere is no longer accepted, humans are differentiated by being logically versus intuitively inclined. Some people actually have both logical and intuitive abilities. We all have both to some degree. Middle brain people use all of their abilities to make decisions and make the best of both worlds. These people are likely using their third eye indigo ray chakra. There's a stand to reason you could determine who you are partially using this method. Age. One can have a young or old personality, and having an old soul is actually looked upon as a positive thing. So age and how you perceive it can be a determinant of who you are. There's a stand to reason you could determine who you are partially using this method. Body complex. There are also people whose anatomic structure defines who they are. They are very happy to be the ones with the biggest, well, I'll let you insert the various body parts that can define people. As you know, weight, too much or too little, and other more negatively perceived factors can also play an outsized role in self-definition in our society or in your environment or with yourself. Whole foods and exercise can help. There's a standing reason you could determine who you are partially using this method. Genealogy bloodline. One can also find out and determine a lot about who they are through their bloodline, so to speak, by having their genealogy traced. They can also include a DNA evaluation against many other people who have also taken these DNA tests to find their ancestors and disconnected family. And there are many very interesting findings about who a person is and who they are related to. Like finding out that you have African or European blood that you didn't know you had. I have done genealogical research on my family and selected the wrong white family to research initially. Many years later, I got connected with a white woman who had the matching DNA and oral history to redirect my research and realign the black side of our family with the white side of her family. There's a stand to reason you could determine who you are partially using this method. Race class. In some parts of the world, who one is determined by the society they belong to, by their race or by their class. Again, it will be very interesting to see how DNA matching affects these societies going forward. Technology, but we also have a racial mind. Do you know what that is? And do you know you can accept or reject those racial patterns that you no longer want to live by? There's a standard reason you can determine who you are partially using this method. Spiritual religious. Then there's the person whose spiritual practice or non-belief can be used by that person to define who they are. They could be so steeped in their belief system that it comes to define them. And actually, all that take the true paths of their decided religion or spiritual practice will find their way to the one infinite creator. There's a standard reason you could determine who you are partially using this method. Personality test. After having been given some new information about a person who one thought they knew, have you yourself said something like, "Wow, I didn't know that. I would have never guessed"? What is initially seen is their personality. The definition of the word personality by Google Oxford: 1, the combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character. Wikipedia's definition of personality is the characteristic sets of behaviors, cognitions, and emotional patterns that evolve from biological and environmental factors. And catch this part of the definition. While there is no generally agreed upon definition of personality, most theories focus on the motivation and psychological interactions with the environment one is surrounded by. Personality, ascension seekers, is a theory based on one's genetics and environment. We'll use Merriam-Webster's dictionary to define environment. 1, the circumstances, objects, or conditions by which one is surrounded. 2, the complex of physical, chemical, and biotic factors such as climate, soil, and living things that act upon an organism or ecological community and ultimately determines its form and survival. What environment are you working in? Are you in sync with it? Should you change it? Would you if you could? The imperative word in these questions is you. I've taken 3 personality trait tests over the years, all based on Dr. Carl Jung's research and findings of the theory of personality types. The first, Briggs and Myers in 1988, differentiated one's perceptions from one's judgments and states that together they constitute a large portion of one's outer behavior. It also states, quote, by definition, an individual's perception determines what he sees in a situation and his judgment determines what he decides to do about it. Here's an example of how personality types are discerned. What one perceives is extroverted or introverted. How one perceives is sensing or intuitive. How judgments are made is feeling or thinking. Whether one is open or closed to additional information is perceptive or judgment. The letters correlate to the personality type, ESFP or INTJ. All the various letter combination of personality type is possible. Based on this test in 1988, my dominant personality type is INTJ with an assertive personality style. I was a technical project manager at this point in my career. In 2004, I took the Insights Preference Evaluator test. The origins go back to Hippocrates identifying 4 distinct energies exhibited by different people. Insights reported on personal style, interacting with others, decision making, key strengths and weaknesses, value to the team, communication, and blind spots. They also included our opposite type and suggestions for development. And also keep in mind, the perspective of this test is for business use. I was red/director on this test. One could be a reformer, director, motivator, inspirer, helper, supporter, coordinator, or observer. I was a project manager and application architect at the time, so there was no surprise. The last one taken was in 2017. It was the Behavior Style Self-Report from the Effective Institute. It noted that this is a combination of their work, Jung, Marstone, Merrill, and Reed. They reported their behaviors as controller, stabilizer, analyzer, and persuader. My dominant style was controller, analyzer. My secondary style was controller, persuader. I was a manager of business architecture at the time. I feel and believe that these personality tests were fairly accurate evaluations of my personality and behavior at the time. I may decide to take another personality test soon to see if my personality has changed or remained the same based on these factors. There's a standard reason you could determine who you are partially using this method. If this does make sense, here and in the description below is a link to several free personality tests that you can review and choose from. I have absolutely no connection with any of these tests in any way. Are you woke, awake, or awakening? You can be woke as a follower, but you are not awake as a follower. You can only be awake as a leader of yourself. Followers are woke, leaders are awake. Listen, if people are having this much trouble with people being woke, what will they do when more people are awake? What would happen if a person with HBP, hypnotized brainwash programming, defined or redefined their definition of themselves? It would begin or continue to break the hypnotized brainwash programming. If not, you are asleep, at least to the wholeness of what you are. If you have HBP, hypnotized brainwash programming, there is no pill for it. So, all you can do is call your consciousness and do the spiritual work necessary to wake up and destroy the HBP so that you may accelerate your journey of ascension. Recommended exercises. 1. Take one conventional area of personality, even one you've already fully or partially investigated or researched, and research it again from an ascension perspective. Determine its validity and veracity. 2. Take another conventional area of personality, a different one, even one you've already fully or partially investigated or researched, and research it again from an ascension perspective. Determine its validity and veracity. 3. Evaluate the findings of these 2 methods of identifying your personality. Determine whether they are complementary or contradictory, and then follow up with more research based on your findings, or determine some self-truth about yourself. In the next video, we'll present the unconventional methods of defining who you are. Thank you for joining us. We are Moore Ascension. Thank you.